Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. Got another air rifle today from Sportsman Gun Centre, and this is an FX Impact M4, but this is the extended version in FAC, so high power, and it's in 2.5 caliber. So let's have a looky. And there we go. That is the beast in there. So let me just pop this out, get rid of the box, and we'll talk you all the way through it and tell you what's in the box too. There's a Foster connector there for filling it up. Good instruction manual there. That's the magazine. This is the fitted case it comes in. So, being the FAC specification, it's a lot more appealing for those who want more power in 177, 22, 25 or 30 caliber. I personally like the 22 and 25 calibers the most because I just think it gets the most out of the FAC power levels without having to worry about going supersonic to really enjoy things. But, you know, horses for courses, whichever suits you. Now, the barrel length on this is 840 millimeters externally, and it comes with a sound moderator as well. There's a Picatinny rail on top here, and that of course will now slide because it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws there which allow it to move on the dovetail that's machined as part of the receiver top. That top's now a thicker bar, gives you a little bit more stiffness and stability in the action receiver. Now the critical things on here, we've got a 580cc buddy bottle, that's carbon fibre. This rifle takes a 250 bar fill, and the filling port is on the underside here. Pop that off and the Foster connector clips onto that. You can add accessories, something like a bottle mount on there for a bipod, or you can add your bipod here. The trigger's all accessible from the underside, and it's the new quick set trigger which gives you a lot more versatility and adjustability from sort of hunting to match sort of specifications. So the big difference here over the sub 12 version is, yes, it's high power, but you've also got the macro and the micro adjusters here, as well as the valving here, so you can change the overall power setting you're getting from the gun. It's one of the things that a lot of people want to do, so they want to learn about tuning. Now the other big difference we've got between this and the sub 12 version is the 75cc power plenum, which gives you that additional buffer zone for air to flow smoothly and freely to make sure you're getting the best consistency shot to shot. On the right side here, that's the fill pressure of the bottle. On the underside here, we've got the reg pressure, which is going to be what's firing off. That is an adjustable recoil pad. It slides up and down. You've got 2 little thumb screws on it, and it will go vertically to suit the position you want to shoot from. And there's also, on the inside of it, there's 3 little screws there which you can fit your fingers onto when you're holding it into your shoulder if that's what you prefer. There's a guard here to stop the magazine going through, but when you got the magazine in, put the loading probe back, the magazine fits in here, and in 2.5 caliber, I'm not sure how many this takes actually, 2.2 caliber was 28 rounds. So this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I remember now, in 25 cal, it's 25 round magazine. These are super good actually. I like to see the fact that these been modified. They've got these little dimples on here, so especially when it's cold like it is at the moment, rather than sort of having to snag here to pull all that round and pre-charge it, you can actually just put a finger into any one of those dimples and it just rotates like a very old telephone. Pop that back there, drop your first pellet in there, that then locks the rotator. You can then put all your other pellets in and just put the lid back on, thus clip it closed, and that will go into the rifle. Now it won't go in at the moment because the probe's in, and of course the probe won't go forwards unless it can go through the magazine, so because there's no pellets in it because I'm not doing any loading in the armoury at the moment. So we can test the trigger port. I'm just going to do a safe dry fire on it. That's reset, that's zeroed, and in grams on this 2-stage trigger we're breaking at 626 grams, which is £6 1 ounces. I quite like that, seems about right for a precision rifle, but you can obviously go lighter or heavier with it. The quick set trigger is also adjustable for position. You can move the blade forwards, backwards, you can rotate it, you can move it up and down slightly as well. And on the left side here, you can see where the actual cocking handle can be swapped to the other side. The magazine will always fit on the right though, so it is, in that respect, a fairly right-handed gun. Although you can shoot them left-handed, it's just slightly less comfortable. That has got a new ball detent in it, so it locks back a little bit better, and of course closing it forward home is ready to fire. You can decock it by holding it back, squeezing the trigger and letting that go slowly forwards. And here we've also got the safety catch, so safe is there, fire is there. fill pressure gauge, reg pressure gauge. New AR-15 style grip on it, but other grips are still accessible. The new grip is slightly beefier, slightly bulkier. It's got a bit more of a palm swell on it, but it's a sort of semi-rubberized texture. It's very grippy and you can handle a rifle quite securely and confidently without massive amounts of hand pressure on that. Still use the barrel liner system, moderators on the end. So let's get a rifle scope on it, take it out shooting and see what we can produce. Right, I've been out shooting with this Impact M4 FAC, the extended version. Right, number one, the barrel on this is 800mm long, so it's quite a big unit of a rifle. The sound moderator does seem to work fairly well because given the amount of energy I was producing, pretty much out of the box, I was impressed with the noise reduction. Now, just to tell you that energy out of the box, I started out using the JSB Exact King Heavy Diablos, 25 caliber, and these are 33.95 grains. Now, with those, as it came out of the box with the valve adjuster here set all the way out, it was doing 74 foot-pounds, just over 1,000 feet per second. Now, I then tweaked that just down a little bit slower. I was kind of leading up the liner on the barrel anyway, so I just wanted to just do some shooting with it. Got it zeroed very easily, and I sort of tweaked that down to about 55 foot-pounds on the adjuster on the front here. I didn't use the micro and the macro adjuster to start with because that'll be for the full tuning video. I do need to get more pellets and some more slugs as well. Now, the extended version does actually have the super heavy STX liner, so it will be more suited to slugs, and of course you've got magazine capacity, air capacity to do that. It's a 580cc bottle and that'll fill up to 250 bars, so you do get a good shot count. Now, on this 25 cal version, there's 25 rounds per magazine. I was filling it after 2 magazines. I just thought that was the sweet spot to shoot. So call it 50 shots and then refill. Now, I think anybody shooting with an air rifle this size realizes that spare air is a fact of life. Okay, you might go out hunting with one and just be happy with 25, 30 shots, but if you're going to shoot one all day, you either need a portable compressor or a bottle with you. So perhaps the absolute shot count isn't that critical. Overall weight at 3.3 kilograms, which is 7.35 pounds. Again, it's quite a sizable beast, and the overall length is 1120 millimeters, which is 44 inches, and that is, again, it's long. Now, I've got the bipod on here. This is a Tier 1 ATAC bipod. That's mounted on the Picatinny rail on the underside. And that Picatinny rail is quite short. And of course, when a bipod like that, you are kind of trying to sort of balance a seesaw a little bit. It would be better with the bipod further out nearer the front, either on a bottle mount or an extended Picatinny rail adapter, which people like Sabre Tactical do make. The other reason for the Sabre Tactical rail, perhaps back here, is that this short mount, it's not really long enough to put it in a tripod. Now, of course, with the bottle here, the receiver here, and you've got the cap for the fill adapter there, you've not a huge amount of space there to fit that in the Picatinny clamp on a ball head of a tripod setup. Most tripod setups, to be fair, are using Arca rail, so you would probably want to use an extender with Arca rail on it to make it more usable with a tripod, which I think is a factor that you would want to look into on these. And of course, those longer Arca rails, you can use larger bipods too. And that larger bipod effectively gives you a greater axis of rotation for stability rather than there. And if you look at that, I'm moving my right hand up and down about the same amount. You can see how much that moves the barrel. Compare that with here, you know, that's the difference between mounting your bipod further forward. So, looking at the filling adapter, Foster filling adapter, you get the Foster filling adapter with it, that clips on, it fills very quickly, very easily. I do prefer that to some of the other probe options. Now, no problems at all using that, and of course Foster is pretty much the standard fitting for most people's pumps or compressors or bottles, and that cap snaps on there fairly tight, not too much of a problem. Now this trigger guard here will detach, and that's usually what things like the Sabre tactical accessory rails fit onto. The grip is larger, it is more grippy, and it is very stable and comfortable. I would probably take more advantage of the quick set trigger and move the trigger itself further forward, but that trigger is extremely crisp and it's very nice to use. I actually appreciated the fact this one was set just a little bit heavier, because when I was out shooting this rifle it was sub-zero, so having a better feel for the trigger was ideal, especially when I needed to wear gloves. So pretty much being all metal, everything does get frosty cold, so do bear that in mind. If you're using night vision on it, you've got loads of Picatinny here and on the other side there to add illuminators and things like that. If you're going to be using thermal on it, better still, because you don't need to use illuminators at all. Macro and micro adjusters do give you immediate power control, and I was, with various tuning options and setups, able to drop down to about 7 foot-pounds minimum, but that was using a lighter pellet. Now I will be doing more of a tuning job on this when I get some heavier pellets and some slugs too, because to get the most energy out of an FAC air rifle, really you need to be pushing caliber size, to be pushing projectile weight, because there's not really any point in pushing these things too close, and especially not over supersonic sound barrier. Now FX themselves recommend running these somewhere, you know, 850 to 950 feet per second, and to be fair, I have reviewed quite a lot of FAC air rifles now, and I would agree wholeheartedly with that. Basically beyond 950 feet per second, I think you're wasting your time a little bit. Of course, that does depend a little bit on your personal environmental circumstances, altitude, temperature, things like that. Now, running where I am at 50 metres above sea level, especially when it's as cold as it has been recently, I'm very happy running at 950 feet per second or less, because I think you get the most accuracy and precision from that. And precision is what we're all chasing, because in terms of a target shooting rifle, you need to rely on the precision and accuracy you can deal with a little bit day by day. Now, of course, the dovetail rail on here is 11mm. You've got the FX rail on top, which is Picatinny, clamps on in 4 places. That's super sturdy, it fits on very nicely. As I've said in a previous video though, you do need to bear in mind that your rings still need to be high enough to make sure the ocular body will still clear that rail, because although the objective body might clear the rail, you have got an effective limitations to how long your scope is relative to the length of rail, so do bear that in mind. Although having said that, you don't need the scope to be too low on these, because the cheek piece on the bullpup itself, it's nice rounded shape, you get a good cheek piece fit into it under your cheekbone without it displacing your jaw, and it's giving you good scope alignment. So realistically, you don't need to push that scope actually too low. Of course, the flip side to that is you do end up with a rifle that is quite a large, tall profile with a little bit more of a top-heavy handling character, but they're very popular, this sort of air rifle now, with a buddy bottle underneath, because especially in bullpup format, you're getting a long barrel, you're getting high shot count, and you can compensate for the handling deficiencies respective to air rifles with lesser shot count and of course shorter barrels, because the longer barrel gives you more energy and it gives you more efficiency. Now, one of the things I wanted to do with this rifle specifically was do an unnecessarily fast shot cycle, and you'll see me on video shooting it deliberately quickly with, you know, my middle finger onto the trigger, cock it, bang, cock it, bang, cock it, bang, because I wanted to check what the refill replenishing rate on it was. And I have to say, this M4 is a lot faster than a similar specification M3 was. That plenum on the back at 75cc is bigger, and you don't feel or hear that kind of slow noise as the filling going through, as the air's pressurizing, and you don't kind of have those odd weak shots where there's a bit of an off noise where you think, was that actually fully filled when all those hammer springs went off? You don't get that with the M4. I did occasionally feel I got it with the M3. Now, I did a review on one of these in sub 12 foot-pound the other week, and of course that, mechanically speaking, is identical in terms of the loading and feeding mechanism. One thing I will say about that one, other than this one, is that was a 2.2 and this is a 2.5. And although they load in exactly the same way, this is a slightly different magazine size. And I did find, on occasion, the magazine needed just a little bit of a jiggle to make sure the probe would go smoothly back through for that first shot. Once it had gone through and the magazine was in the correct position, it was fine. And of course, these new magazines with the dimples on the rotor here are far easier to load, especially with cold hands. You know, rotate it round there, pop your first pellet in, and then you can refill all the others and that will then go. I didn't have any misfeeds, any miscycles or anything. And of course, when it goes back through to that last pellet, you can hear the slight click as it's closed, and that will then block the probe going forward, so you know you can't take any more shots. As are pretty much all FX air rifles, they do even say in the instructions, if you put more than 2 pellets in a barrel, it probably will jam up, so just be careful, because you can double, triple, even quadruple load if you weren't careful with it, because of course that probe comes back and the magazine rotates every time, so just make sure you don't double load it. Now, there are a lot of calibre and barrel length options for this rifle, so it's best to click on the link in the description for the FX website and to see what Sportsman Gun Centre can get you in the UK. The barrel lengths do vary, and you'd have the ultra short compact versions to this extended version, which is of course the most efficient, probably going to give you the most power. It's available in 177, 22, 25, 30 and 35 calibre with relative magazine capacity of 35, 28, 25, 20 and 18 shots in those calibres respectively. I personally like the FAC in the UK in 22 and 25 specification. If you are hunting with them, I think those are the most appropriate. It's interesting to watch a lot of YouTube videos set overseas and this, that and the other, where there are different quarry species to hunt, where 30 and 35 calibre might be popular then. And the 35 calibre you can run up to probably about 130, 140 foot-pounds. But is that needed for the UK? Well, that's horses for courses. And if you're going to go into an FAC specification rifle, it's really about who you think you're going to be competing against in a target environment, because competition forces everybody to use equipment within the same rule book, and then it's all about the tuning you can do. FX say themselves that tuning these things is not an absolute science. Altitude, air pressure, air temperature, things like that can have a huge factor, and that's before you start talking about the different calibers you're using, and even so different projectiles, because you might prefer to using pellets, you might prefer using slugs. I've used this so far mostly with pellets. I have shot slugs with it, but I didn't have enough left to do the tuning with them to get the best accuracy. Accuracy with the FX hybrids was actually pretty good, but these are probably the closest ones to a Diablo pellet, because those at 34 grains are heavier than these, which I think are 26 grains, and that is not a hugely long projectile in comparison. If you start pushing 35, 40 grain slugs, then yes, they are getting longer. Now, the great thing about these FX magazines is that you have got long capacity to make sure that those long slugs will fit in the magazine without snagging. And that's one of the big advantages of the new magazine systems and the actual depth they have to fit into the rifle. I still prefer pellets personally for hunting, but I will be getting some of the heavier slugs to push some of the distances when the weather improves a little bit and the slugs arrive. I got some good results with the FX hybrids, but I did get the best groups so far with the exact King Heavies in 34 grain or 33.95 grain format. That's because I had the most time with them to tune them and get the best from them. I didn't find the tuning difficult, and it's actually quite easy to notice where you can start out, you get really scattered groups, and you sort of make some adjustments to the settings, particularly the valve adjuster on the front, and that will immediately close those groups way down. And then when you've moved past that, you can use the macro and the micro adjuster to tweak it a little bit more. And that's with that specific projectile at those specific temperatures and on that day. Of course, if you want one of these, tuning them there goes my compressor. Now you do have to accept if you're going to have an FAC air rifle, one of the FXs, tuning it is part of ownership. It's one of the reasons they are so tunable, because you do need to learn to tune them and make them the most appropriate for the projectile you choose. That's the hobby, that's part of the sport if you go down that route. So don't expect to just get one, put your first pellets in it and shoot the smallest groups. You do need to work on them. But that is part of the enjoyment and part of the sense of achievement of owning one. Right, well I hope you've enjoyed watching that preliminary review. So far, this rifle's only been shot out to 50 metres. I wanted to get an idea of the air capacity, the functional capability of it, the accessories I'm going to put with it, and make sure that barrel is well run in, leaded up and ready to go with more projectiles. So as soon as those projectiles come, I will be shooting these out to longer ranges, and I'm going to swap it onto a bigger scope probably, first focal plane, give me a little bit more long distance capability. Right, make sure you like, subscribe, comment and click the notification bell to keep track of those uploads. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.